Captain CA here for FlatsClass YouTube. Today, I'm going to share with you a few tips about summer fishing. That's right, my 5 top lures for summertime fishing. You know, when summertime gets here, we're dealing with heat, we're dealing with floating grass, we're dealing with storms. There's so many, I'm going to say factors, if you will, that change the game for us that love to throw the artificials. And when you look, like at all the tackle behind me, you might say, when do I ever get to throw that big stuff? You know, the big lures. Well, this is the time of year that's all you're gonna throw, especially if you wanna catch big fish like the one I'm gonna show you right now. Go check out the action here, and I'm gonna go inside the studio and set up some of the baits, and we're gonna talk about them and the scenarios where they're the most effective. Go watch it. Episode of FlatsClass YouTube is brought to you by AquaTraction, your go-to solution for advanced marine flooring. Girl, that was a beautifully sight fish snook.
Good job.
Beautifully sight fish snook.
Out of the way.
Just be easy with them because we don't want them to run back. I'm way off the bank, and the wind's blowing us farther off. There you go. There you go. I think you're okay. I don't think he can get in the tree. I don't think he can get in the tree, but this is an awfully big snook. When I saw him, he just guppied that bait. You threw it, he just guppied it. I was like, he's gonna eat it. That is the way to start the morning off. Woo! Look at the tail on that bitch.
Look at that tail.
Whoa. Nice job.
Okay, we got our angler up, so hopefully that will all go smoothly.
Nice job. All right, we are far enough off the bank where I think now my job is to keep him from running behind the boat. I'm trying to keep us way out here. You're doing great, girl.
The rod's out of the way, everything's out of the way, so we're good.
He's way up there, but...
Oh yeah, look at that big weight he's putting out. Shit.
We're doing fine, girls. We are doing fine. This is a big tournament snook here, and he's coming right, or she is coming right to us now. This is where we want her.
Yeah,
out here in 3 feet of water. So when you lead this fish into the thing, we're gonna just be easy with her all the way up. The bait is out of its mouth, so there's no way it's gonna chafe off.
Okay.
So we got plenty of good vibes going.
The size of that hole. Yeah.
It's okay. That fish is way bigger than that. You're now swimming out of that hole. I brought that net because that's just a longer handled net than my little orange one. And look at the size of this beast.
Might need a bigger net.
It's gonna be a 35 or better fish. I like tournament fishing with you girls. It's always good with you ladies. Nice and smooth. Nice and smooth.
Want to take a picture with you?
Jess, get on the right side. Whoop. Wait till the head is up. Doing fine, Jewel. You guys are doing great.
On the side? Yeah. Okay, here you go.
Nice and smooth. Heads out of the water. Move to it now. You're gonna be good. Right? Beautiful. Swing it in.
I need a bigger net. Grab this. There you go.
I'm telling you right now, that's a 17, 18 pound snook, girls. You guys know how to win.
All right, I'll give you a hand. Ready? Grab the net.
Yeah. That's how we roll. Two blondes in a dinghy. All right. I'm going to get down here and handle some of this business, and we'll be right back.
Yeah, we might want you to do this one.
That's one hell of an impressive fish. It really is. And trust me, as much credit as I'd like to take for being the guide on that little tournament deal with Julie and Blondie, it really comes down to their tenaciousness, or tenacity if you will, and the fact that we're using big baits, big swim baits in that instance, and that's one of my top 5. So when I'm trying to fish summer heat, the number one thing I think about is water temperature. So that dictates when our action's going to be the best. And generally, after you've had the cooling of the evening all night long, the coolest water temps you will see are prior to sunrise and just after. That's when you need to be fishing. This is the one time of year you got to get out of bed at like 4:30 in the morning and get to the water so that you can spend your fishing, your maximum effectiveness in the summer months, and I'm talking June, July, and August, known as the dog days of summer, where you got those high water temps. You need to be fishing from just before sunrise up till about 10:30, 11 o'clock. After that, it gets tough, and you've got to, do some different things. So that particular piece of video you saw, we were fishing some inclement weather. We had some storms and all night long, and the water was a little cooler than normal, and we could get right into fishing swim baits. Most of the time in the summer, I'm using top water, first light all the time, after thunderstorms, and I use them at night too. The size, anywhere from the full size top dog to I like these two baits a lot, which are the Top Dog Juniors, and then the Papa Mullet. This little mullet here is just a great little bait, very splashy, and maybe my favorite summer bait in low light conditions, just because you can walk it really erratically because it's light and floats high on the water, and it spits and sprays water in front of it. And Snook love this. They love this plug. Because of the dark belly, it silhouettes against the twilight sky or even the moon, and it does a great job at night. And that's the other reason I like the dark and stormy Top Dog Junior for fishing at night. Those are great colors. I'm not pimping my baits. You can get a black top water and it'll work just as well. All right. If you're fishing daylight hours and you've got those gray skies because you're having those summer thunderstorms, you can use the old red and white, which is a guarantee plug for me. You'll notice that I like those heavier baits that sit down in the water. They give me an opportunity for the fish to get a hold of it. They really hit it, and they're not so light that when the fish come up and hit it and blow it away, because the problem with topwater plugs is they're topwater plugs. And it's hard for fish to get a hold of them. And you'll also notice that most of my selections have single inline hooks on them. I do that so that I can mitigate the fouling of the plug, because in the summer months you'll get rafts of grass or just fine grass that proliferates the surface everywhere. That comes from a lot of boating activity, comes from some of the summer die-off. And when you get a consistent wind, it will blow that grass around quite a bit, and you've got to deal with it throughout the day. So those inline hooks is going to be a theme that you're going to see in every segment of this video. But fishing out there a little bit deeper. Sometimes I'll go out and fish 5 and 8 feet of water over rock piles, where I have the opportunity to pull a grouper up or to pull a cobia off these rocks. And believe it or not, there are plenty of big snook out there too, especially at first light if you're the first one to get to one of those numbers while it's still slick before you run back in. These full-size top dogs and the he dogs are fantastic for that. So top water is probably one of my go-tos, and I would rank it right up there, number 1, what I want to use in the summer. Now, I'm going to show you my number 2 bait next. Number 2 would have to be the fluke or the jerk shads. This is a Z-Man Green Lantern, 5 inches, another big bait. I've got it rigged on a chin locks hook. You can put it on a 4 or a 5/0, 8 to 3/16 chin locks hooks. These are fantastic in a number of scenarios. They get through thin floating grass pretty easy, but when you get the thicker stuff, it becomes a problem because as you pull these and you're darting them erratically through the water trying to catch fish on a flat, the way they come up, they'll collect grass and it's hard for them to shed it. I've got an answer for that, but just listen to me. So work this bait, it's fantastic. You'll notice that it has more of a flat side to it. That's what I really like about these baits, is they're very flat. So they skip well. So if I want to fish mangrove shorelines on higher tide phases, I'm able to skip that bait and get right up underneath it, let it fall to the bottom, and then twitch it quickly out from underneath it. Because during high sun, after the morning time, that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to follow that tide in and I'm going to bang those shorelines, especially those mangrove shorelines that have a little bit of depth. And this jerk shad is the way to do it. In fact, it's probably one of my favorite techniques this time of year, is just skipping shorelines. Mangrove shorelines, mostly those outside points, those outside islands in all the fisheries that I fish. And I don't have any problem with it at all. And that's definitely a go-to. Now, there are other fluke baits or ways to rig them, I think, that will allow you to work that open flat to fish that 2.5 to 4 feet of water during the heat of the day, especially if it's out there off the outside points where those fish tend to like to play, and get where there's some cooler water on the incoming tides. If you've got a lot of grass, one of the best ways to beat it is to head weight your bait so that it plunges below the surface and stays down lower underneath the grass. That way, if you're collecting and you're ripping it through, the grass is up here and it's not up high where you have it with the standard Texas style. This is a pro bullets bait. Look how that line tie, if you will, is integrated into the head. It sheds grass really easy. I love this bait. You can still skip this. Now, if I were to fish a dock, I would use this. It's head weighted. I can get way up underneath the docks, and that's another great tactic to use during the summer heat and the number of anglers that are on the water. Sometimes the flats are just inundated with jet skis and too many boats and pontoons and people partying on these islands and just kind of hanging out, enjoying the summer, and they're in your way. So if you fish those docks, especially the docks that are along the intercoastal waterway, the docks that are on these outside points that have a little deeper water and they have more flow, okay, a lot more flow, these are perfect. 5-inch jerk shads once again, and try to pick these pro bullets in the 1/4 ounce weights where they're head weighted. You can skip them way up underneath those docks, get them way in there, let them get all the way to the bottom. And the way Elastec works is that Elastec will allow the tail to float up, and this looks just like a feeding minnow or a mullet on the bottom. And as it works its way out of the dock, just looking like a little finger mullet under there, it will get whacked by a snook or a redfish, or if you're lucky, a nice flounder that you can take home. So those fluke baits are definitely my second go-to, and something I'd add in the fluke family would be the darters. And I'm adding this because summertime, you do a lot of tarpon fishing and a lot of snook fishing. And these baits work awesome. They got tons of action. Again, I like to head weight them. I like to throw them up there on these rocky points or around docks and dart them and let them go out of it's just a wild, erratic action that drives snook crazy. When I'm on the beach in the morning, I'll long cast in front of strings of tarpon and I'll just reel this bait just so that it just kind of swims along like a needlefish in front of the string. And not every time, but every once in a while, one of those big silver kings will just come up and suck it right off the surface. That would definitely be my number 2 profile group that I'd go to. So now you've got topwater and you've got the fluke style. Next up, suspending baits. Believe it or not, even suspending baits work great in the summer. So after rainstorms or first light, whichever you prefer, again, being sensitive to the time when the fish are going to be the most assertive, the predator fish, to crush your lure. I'm looking at places like the swash channels on the beach, especially if you're within 1,000 yards of a pass. Fantastic zone. And I'm in those low light periods where I don't have to rely on, in bright light, you got to rely on a fly rod or a small bucktail jig. But in the wee hours of 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, you can get away with a plug, and you don't have a lot of grass that time of day, because a lot of times on my coast, we kind of have an offshore breeze in the morning, which clears all that grass out. So I'll hit a few points. I'll run out to one of the beaches and fish, the edges of the pass. And I'm fishing shallow because the fish they're up there running the bait up on the beaches, and they're running these fish around these points early in the morning when the predator fish are aggressive. But these 2 baits also work very, very good after a big rainstorm and you have water pouring out of a culvert, or the water's rushing down a creek now and going out around a mangrove point. And what I'm talking about, again, with the in lines in place, are the big Catch 5. And there's a variety of colors. I just chose this one here because I fish a lot of tannin water around the Withlacoochee River and stuff like that near Yankeetown. And another one of my favorites, which is the 27MR. These 2 baits I can recklessly throw as tight to the bank as I can so I don't spook anything, and then I can dart them and flash them off the bank very quickly, and they just stay just below the surface, and they're not that deep. And once I get them out so far, I just reel them back up and I do it again. But that quick, erratic flashing and moving and swimming like that, like something that got washed out of the creek or out of the culvert, or first light on the beach, I might pick something more silvery or white in these shapes, but they get blasted by snook. They just get destroyed by snook. The snook love them. The single inlines, do you miss a fish every once in a while? You do. You have to be patient when you're flashing, and they get on there. Make sure you stick them good. You got 2 sets of hooks on there, and snook usually get the whole bait. And you're not going to be bothered by catching the smaller fish on baits this big, because there's going to be ladyfish up there and everything else. But this eliminates a lot of those mangrove snappers and ladyfish and stuff like that, because they're a big bait and they're not looking to bite off more than they can chew. So these I'm going to say shallow suspending baits can be very, very, very effective for you guys that love to fish snook and you like to fish early in the morning. I'll throw them around docks too that have some lights. As the lights in the morning, you'll see all kinds of snook. Don't throw a big bait like that right in the light. Look for those dark areas between the darks, or on the rim of the lights, or on the rim of the light, or in between the docks, and work those plugs, because lots of times you've got a few potholes and some turtle grass between those docks. And if you're throwing plugs like that at 5 o'clock in the morning when no one else is out there, you're going to catch some pretty impressive fish that are sitting in those zones, because that's your window. Remember, we're targeting early morning, we're targeting the night fish, and that's where those baits excel. So now I've given you 3 profiles. I've given you the big suspenders as number 3, the fluke style baits, the jerk shads and the darters, and the top water. We're going to talk 4, we're going to talk heavy swim baits, and there's a reason why they need to be heavy. It's what the girls caught the 40-inch snook on. You're dying to know what the girls caught the snook on if you didn't see it in the video. It's this big 5-inch diesel minnow. And look at the head on this bait. These are 3/8 of an ounce redfish eyes. Redfish eye is different than the trout eye. The trout eye has a shorter shank, so the hook would be further forward. The redfish eye goes deeper into the bait. So you've got that hook way back there. And it's a big, strong hook for big fish. And the only thing you have to do with this is make a long cast. As soon as it hits the water, feather the line down and reel it back at a decent pace. Because it's heavy, it's going to get into the bottom or into the grass, the sea bottom. You want to make sure you're rolling this at a pretty good rate of speed back. And it will get a reaction strike from a snook for sure. If I were fishing for bull redfish, it'll get a reaction bite from them as well. These are fantastic baits. And when it comes to summertime, I don't use 3-inch minnows. I don't use 4-inch minnows. I only use these 5-inch minnows. That's it. They have tons of action. They got a giant boot tail that catches a lot of water and puts a lot of thump in that water column as they go by. And I fish them anywhere from 1.5 feet to 4 foot of water, and they catch everything. They catch literally everything. It's one of my favorite go-to baits. This bait here, I'm telling you right now, if you just throw this one, you're going to catch fish. Now, why the heavy head? One, it punches through the surface easily, and you don't got to deal with the grass because you're down near the bottom as this thing's swimming around. 2, casting distance matters. I know a lot of you think it doesn't, but casting distance matters. And you can throw this a virtual country mile. It's amazing. So one of my favorite baits, especially fishing, if I'm fishing a little shallow, I'm fishing a flat, if you will. Zones like that, I like this bait. It does good in deeper water if you're more patient with it, but I've got that one covered too. Now that one, you've seen me talk about it before, is the Hercules minnow. This is the 5-inch Hercules minnow. It probably weighs close to, let me see, what have they got in here for weight, if they even put the weight on here. I think it's like 3/4 of an ounce. Yeah, it's 5/8 of an ounce. So it's heavy. This is heavier than the 5-inch swim bait with a big 3/8 head. 5/8 of an ounce. Has a great tail on this one as well. Bicolor bait, has like a 7/0 hook on this thing. And you look at it and you're like, wow, this is something. But when you're fishing places where you've got those intercoastal waterways or those passes where you've got a little bit of depth, I'm talking something that's 3 feet to maybe down to 8 feet, and you're fishing that edge there, maybe at the end of a residential canal that has a bunch of docks and goes around the corner, and you swim this thing by in that 8 feet of water where those 40-inch snook live, they will crush this Hercules minnow. This has got to be one of the best baits that Z-Man put out last year, and I go through them like crazy. They catch nothing but big fish. We've displayed them on the show before. We've had them a lot of episodes where we've utilized this bait, and the 4-inch and the 5-inch are fantastic, and they have a wicked action, super strong hook, and I power fish with these very fast depending on depth, and I love them. So now we've gone through topwater, we've gone through the fluke style baits, we've gone through the suspenders that I like a lot, and now we've gone through those big swim baits, the heavier style swim baits, or paddle tails, if you will. I don't like the little ones, I only like the big ones. There's one more bait, and it's going to surprise you, and it was a toss-up between that and a bigger spoon, like a 3/8 or a 1/2 ounce spoon, that I like to throw, and I like to throw this bait at night. It's a bass bait, and I'm going to share that one with you next. You're probably saying, what is he talking about? I'm talking about the goat, or the billy goat, which is even bigger than this one. Now this is close to 4 inches. They say it's 3.75, but it looks like it's 4 inches to me. And I'll rig it on a Chinlocks hook, okay? It's got 2 big boot tails. This thing, when I rig it on an 1/8 ounce, like I have it here on an 1/8 ounce, I believe this is a 4/0. I'll put the billy on a 5/0, but I use it at night. This is a color called Okeechobee Crawl. So it's a lot like June bug, except for there's a little green in it. But what it does is the fish see that silhouette at night. So many times, if I'm flats fishing in the evening time, this time of year, like we get out there and we just like, instead of fishing dock lights, let's just go to the flat and see what we can catch. This is one of the first baits I tie on because you fish it almost like a frog. I just have the weight on the rigging hook so I can get some casting distance because this is a floppy bait. So I throw it on some light line and we're fishing anything from 2 foot to 3 foot of water. Now you've got a little bit of floating grass out there, so you're hoping if you've got that breeze, it's a little cleaner. But this thing makes so much noise, almost like a buzz bait on top of the water with its legs going like this across. It comes through there real quick, and those fish that are cruising on that flat, doesn't matter if they're the big trout, because that's the only time they're on the flat, is about 5 o'clock in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning looking for a mullet to hit. Or you've got bigger redfish up there cruising around. That's when they're hungry because the water's cooler and they're looking around. Even if they got their head down, this thing comes by, makes enough noise, they'll come up and chase it down and eat it. Or you'll get your fair number of snook. But because it's darker on the bottom, its silhouette's good. It makes a lot of splashy noise if you don't want to use the top water. And it's almost as if there's trash on the water or anything like that that keeps fouling your top water plug, and you throw the goat or the billy goat, which is a little bit bigger than this one, you will have a ton of success on this bass bait. Now I use it a lot too in Louisiana during the bright part of the day, but here in Florida, that goat is fantastic. And I'm probably giving a secret away because this is kind of a local favorite around here. Guys that like to use these goats for trout and they like to use them for redfish. But try the Z-Man goat. I'll give you another look at this bait. And I'd say summertime, this is when I'm using this bait a lot. Now, in the wintertime, I use the baby goat, which is a lot smaller, and we've done videos on that one as well. But this time of year, these 5 baits in general will catch you some fish. I'm telling you, try to shy off the little baits. If you shy off those little baits and just fish these larger profiles, you're gonna catch some quality fish. This is your opportunity to use this big stuff. Some of you will ask me, do you use scent on these baits? I'm a huge ProCure fan because the viscosity of ProCure really sticks to the bait and it stays on the bait. But this time of year when we're power fishing, we're really covering a lot of water, you don't give the fish an opportunity like you do in the winter months or the colder months. I'm gonna say sometime between November and March, where scent is very important because the bait is either being you're dead sticking it or you're moving it slow, and the scent has time to work. But when you're working these baits and flashing them through, the scent thing is not as big a deal. If you like to use scent and it gives you some confidence, then do it. Me personally, I don't even bother with it this time of year because I find that I'll end up with a cloud of pinfish behind the lure chasing it down because they smell something. But to the predator like the big trout or the predator like the big snook or the tarpon, they all primary sense for them is their sight and they're looking for something. You got to fool them with speed and size. Redfish, a little bit different, more of the olfactory senses, but even redfish this time of year with these big baits, I'm just trying to get them noticed because usually your water's a little stained in a lot of places here in Florida and the upper Gulf Coast and even up the Atlantic seaboard, or if you guys out in Texas, because of the rains, the height, the overcast, the breeze, all that factors in. So the bigger baits, this is your opportunity. Hopefully these 5 profiles will catch a lot more fish for you this year. And if you like what you're seeing here and you're learning stuff at FlatsClass YouTube, give us the thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. I want to bring more of these videos to you to make you a better inshore angler. All right, I've got some new reels that just came in. I got 2 brand new Vanfords and I'm going to go spool them up in the shop and I'm getting ready to go fishing tomorrow.